Welcome to the Castle Country Real Estate Podcast, everybody. I'm Josh Madsen. I'm a realtor here in Carbon and Emery County here in Utah, and super excited to be back for episode number 16 of the podcast. This is the show where I give you a weekly snapshot of the real estate market here in Carbon and Emery County. I cover both counties, and am part of the Madsen real estate team. So we also have an agent on the Wasatch Front who deals with properties up in Salt Lake County, Davis and Weber County, and Utah County as well. I'm excited to be here. I've been doing the video portion of the podcast. I added a little audio equipment to get the sound a little better today. So we get these nice little headphones, and that's fun. Hopefully that'll improve the sound quality a little bit better for those that are listening on the podcast only version, which you can find on any platform that you have, or if you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook. Either way, it's always nice to have a little bit better audio quality. Excuse me. So let's hop right into it. Last week, I kind of gave the Carbon and Emery County 2023 forecast, which is very important because when we start the new year, we really want to know what's going on with the market. And especially this year, coming out of the pandemic, the last 3 years, and the market was incredibly different than it's ever been in the history of the world, and especially here in the United States. So my hope was to give you sort of a market overlook, but in a little more detailed way than I normally do. So the podcast last week was generally it's about 10 minutes or so. That one was probably closer to 20, 25 minutes. So if you watched or listened, thank you very much. And hopefully it was helpful. I'd love to get your feedback. And you can always email me, josh@madsen.team. And I'd love to hear what your experiences are in the marketplace here in Carbon or Emery County. That always helps me kind of keep my finger on the pulse. So let's hop right into it. Number of homes on the market between Carbon and Emery County combined right now, as of today, is 60 properties. That's down, I think, from 62 last week. And the number of homes that have sold the last 7 days is 5. And I believe that's down from 7 in the last 7 days. So we talked a little bit about this in the market snapshot last week. There's not very many homes out there. I mean, you think 2 counties wide. If we split it right down the center, that's 30 properties. These are all single family homes between the 2 counties, but that's not really a lot, considering that even back in December, we were probably hovering, around 100 to 110 properties. So it's significantly lower, and we're going to get into a little bit about what that means. And this is what we need to be watching as we start getting into the conversation about 2023. What's going to happen with prices? Maybe you're a buyer and looking to get into the market. What does that mean for you? Maybe you're looking to sell your home. What does that mean for you? So let's talk about general market information that kind of plays off of what we learned last week, and what the numbers mean. First off, I wanted to bring up, it is still a seller's market. By definition, a seller's market is where there's more buyers than there are sellers. Okay. So despite what some people might be thinking about, interest rates have changed and all this, these are true, but just by definition, it's still a seller's market. Now, being a seller is different than it once was in the last 3 years. And that's what's important for us to talk about. And we'll get into a little bit about that in this week's hot tip. But I just kind of wanted to bring that up. It's a seller's market. Let's keep that in mind as we move into the coming months of 2023. And especially for those that might be looking to sell their home, and also for buyers that are looking to get into the market, knowing what you're dealing with. So let's talk about the buyer's side in the market right now. Buyers are starting to reacquaint themselves and reactivate themselves as they warm up to these interest rates. Just got off the phone with a client, and we're starting to see those showings start picking up. The phone calls are picking up. People are starting to go look for homes again. And this is great because they're starting to reactivate their search to go look for a home. The biggest change that happened in the last 6 months is these interest rates. People were purchasing homes for close to 3-4%. And all of a sudden it jumped all the way up to 7%. And that slowed people down pretty quick. It knocked some people out of the market. They weren't able to continue to look for a home. And the people that were kind of on the fence and maybe were waiting around and thinking that the market might crash or one of these things, I think they're starting to realize. Buyers are starting to realize, hey, we're starting to settle in to these interest rates, and they're probably not going to go down. I mentioned this last week. The 3% interest rate, 4% interest rate, most likely was once in a lifetime. And we're probably never going to see that again. So now we're starting to get in this range of, between 6 and 7%. And again, just to remind people, if you didn't watch the podcast last week, is interest rates are going to continue to follow the inflation. So we want to keep an eye on that, and I'm going to report on that every week just to keep you in the know about what's happening with that. Sellers need to recalibrate their expectations for the market as well. So as buyers are starting to reactivate themselves, get out there and start looking, we still want sellers to understand that they need to recalibrate their expectations from selling their house in 2 days to selling their home in like 30, 60, 90, maybe even 120 days. So that's a major shift in what has been going on previously. But overall, this is really much more of a normal market in historical terms. Interest rates are, like I said, floating between 6 and 7%. But the amount of time it takes to sell a home is much more like it used to be. And that's important for sellers that are looking to get into the market, that they're not just going to throw their house on the market and there's going to be multiple offer situations, people paying $100,000 in cash over asking price, and so on and so on. Everything was very, very unique during the pandemic situation. And now buyers and sellers, we all are kind of coming back into a much more normal situation in terms of how it's been in the past. So we want to keep that in mind. So one thing I want you guys to remember is prices this year will most likely stay flat or decrease a little from the 2022 values of the home. Okay. So it's really, really important that we have this in mind, because this is how you can look at strategy. If you're selling your home, if you're a buyer, what you can expect. Do I hop in the market? If it's really going to stay flat or go down. And when I say go down, probably not much. Maybe a percentage or whatnot from last year, but nothing significant. There's not going to be a massive nosedive in terms of the market. And so this is how I think we can all create better expectations for buying and selling real estate in 2023, what we can expect. Also, timing. Maybe you're looking to sell your house and you're not really sure when to do it. It's probably not in your favor if you need to sell the home, for instance, to just wait and wait and wait, thinking that the price is going to significantly go up, because it's probably not. For buyers, it may just be an interest rate thing. And you're thinking, I want to get in the market, but I'm going to wait for interest rates to go down. Well, don't wait too long. And maybe you're between 6 and 7%. Like I said, that seems to be where it's floating around now. Obviously, you want to talk to your lender, which is something I can help you out with. If you don't have a lender that you trust in the area, I can easily suggest some options for you to talk to. But these are important things to keep in mind. So although it's a seller's market by definition, it's important to price your home correctly as a seller. in the beginning in order to sell it in a reasonable amount of time. Again, the days are gone of just sticking a price on your home and expecting the market to sort of play itself out, and you're just going to get these multiple offer situations, and you're just going to get whatever you sort of put on there. And that's kind of what I used to tell people during that pandemic era is if we went out and I'm representing the buyer, a lot of times, there's probably going to be 20 plus offers on a property and everyone's going to be biting at it. So if you really want it, we really had to strategize about how much money we could afford over the asking price and things of that nature. But I always told my buyers that during that time period, the price that was asked for was essentially the buy-in chip to the game. And that's kind of where we needed to start. There was no lowballing. If you wanted any chance of getting any sort of response or even in the mix of like top 5. So now that we're kind of getting into this normal market situation, that's something to consider too, is on the seller side, like I just mentioned, it's important to price correctly so that you're not overpricing or underpricing, but especially overpricing where you're missing out on the buyers that could qualify for your home or may be interested in it. And also, buyers should also expect to be able to maybe have a little negotiating room because there's not as many homes out there. So all of this plays into the supply and demand thing we talked about in the market forecast last week. There's still not enough homes for how many buyers are out there, okay? So the supply and demand is a massive, massive factor in terms of pricing, time on market, all of these things. So this is going to be the consistent theme, I think, in 2023 is making sure that we understand supply and demand and we understand how that affects the marketplace, both on the buyer and the seller side. So that's a general market forecast or general market information for the week. Hopefully it's a little refresher on last week if you missed the episode, and just some quick bullet points both for buyers and sellers to kind of keep in mind. So let's talk about your real estate hot tip. So every week I like to share a little hot tip for maybe a buyer, maybe a seller, maybe both. And I wanted to, this is kind of on both sides, okay? But I wanted to share a really important statistic. And this talks about the equity in a home, okay? So if you didn't know, on average, home prices appreciated by 288.7% nationwide over the last 32 years. So that means homeowners grew their net worth significantly in the long run. One of the things I always like to talk about, especially buyers getting into the market, real estate and homeownership is one of the greatest wealth building tools that we have at our fingertips. It's incredibly important. And for those that had held on to a home for a long time prior, or maybe not even that long prior to the pandemic, that equity grew significantly, and people saw the benefits of that by selling during that time. But historically, the benefits of those playing the long game, that's kind of what this hot tip is about. You know, this statistic is over 32 years, but it's really important that we understand that real estate and home ownership, obviously buying a primary home at first, and then maybe you want to venture out. Maybe you pay your house off or you get a rental. Real estate is going to appreciate historically, and it's important that you're in it for the long game. The pandemic kind of shifted everyone's mentality that they could buy a home and then maybe a year later, 2 years later, during that 3-year period of time, that they could make a great return. And that was true. But real estate, for those that are looking to get into the market, and this is a good time, like we said, even though the supply is low, it's a good time. The interest rates are higher than they were 2 years ago, a year ago. But if someone's willing to hold on to their property, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 32 years, like this says, your net worth is going to increase significantly. The equity in your home is going to increase significantly. It's just up to you to maintain the property, update it, and keep it in good shape. And it's a great investment. So this is an awesome place to put your hard-earned money and have it make you money over the long run. But you've got to be in it for the long haul in most cases, especially if it's a primary residence and you're not looking at buying other real estate along the way. So that's your real estate hot tip for the day. And before I let you go, I always like to try to find some events in the area, let you know what's going on. Honestly, I couldn't find a ton of stuff going on. So if you're hearing this and you know of an event coming up before next week's podcast, definitely email me, let me know. I would love to talk about local events in Carbon and Emery County here in Utah. But I wanted to mention the snow's pretty good. So for any snowmobilers out there, skiers, I'm a skier myself, although I'm newer to the area. I have been poking around, and there's a lot of really cool little spots for backcountry skiers, snowshoeing, ice fishing. I haven't been up yet, but there's a lot of good activities to do. It's still cold. The snow's holding. The ice is holding, and it's a good time to get outside and get out of the house for a little bit and enjoy that. So I'd encourage all of you to take advantage of the wonderful outdoors that we have here in Carbon and Emery County. And I know I am, and trying to get up there as much as possible. So thanks for checking out the Castle Country Real Estate Podcast. I have a blast doing these. Like I said, my name is Josh Madsen. I'm a realtor here in Price specifically, but I service Carbon and Emery County. I'd love to meet you. If you're interested in just finding out what your home value is, or if I can be of service in any way, please reach out to me. It's josh@madsen.team, MADSEN. My phone number is 801-388-4047. Feel free to shoot me a text, a phone call, and I'd love to get to know you. And I'll be back next week, and thanks for listening, and we'll see you later.